Hello and welcome. This is Business Edge right here on News Central. I'm Tolulokwe Adelaru Balogun. Our headline story: Ghana's 2021 oil revenue forecasts. Now, Ghana wants to revitalize her refinery. This comes from the Minister of Energy saying that the government is committed to ensuring the country's only refinery, the Tema Oil Refinery, or TOR, is up and running. How will this happen? What effect will it have on Ghana's oil revenues for 2021? This is our focus today. Welcome. This is Business Edge. The Tema Oil Refinery has not been operational for a while due to several challenges, including the inability of the entity to pay its workers. TOR shut down 2 years ago over the lack of crude, as managers of the facility were unable to raise letters of credit. Now, the Energy Ministry says government will do everything within its power to ensure TOR resumes full operations. Some stakeholders, including the Chamber for Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, also called on the government to revamp TOR to prevent it from eventually collapsing. Its being operational will boost Ghana's earning capacity. On the topic of revenue, COPEC has asked that members of parliament throw out the new levies on petroleum products. According to the executive secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amoah, there are loopholes in the revenue generation of the state that the finance ministry needs to find solutions to rather than bringing in new levies. He said that if the finance ministry channels its energies to sealing the revenue loopholes, we will be able to get far. So we have asked the people's representatives in parliament not to let us down this time around. Out of good conscience, they should throw this proposition away because there is clearly a lot of revenue that the state allows to go unaccounted for. And then we come back to squeeze the same people who are already crying for paying too much for fuel. The government, through the 2021 budget, is proposing a new tax on petroleum products, among others. If the proposal is accepted, Ghanaians will see further increases in petroleum prices at the pump. Joining me on the show is oil and gas specialist and financial analyst from Accra, Ghana, Benjamin Ato Quansah. Benjamin, good to see you again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Great. So let's get started with just a bit of a background. So before the Tema Oil Refinery stalled operations, how productive really was it? How profitable was the refinery for the Ghanaian government?
In very recent times, Tema Oil Refinery hasn't been very profitable for the government, and it's probably the reason why it finds itself in the situation. We currently have a situation where the Tema Oil Refinery is unable to raise enough funds to secure.
We're going to take a quick time out, get those resolved, and Business Edge will continue to stay with us. And you are still, of course, watching Business Edge. I have Benjamin Ato Quansah back with me as we take a look at Ghana's 2021 petroleum forecast and their potential for revenue. Benjamin, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the first question we got into was even looking at how productive the Tema Oil Refinery has been or had been before it had stalled. And you mentioned the fact that it was quite productive for government, being one of the reasons maybe why it is in this situation. And that leads me to this question about the allegations that the state of the refinery is actually deliberate. What's behind the allegations? And in your estimation, do you think they're true? Is it because people are able to siphon off money that Tema is not working?
I think the simple answer to this is no. And I think the allegations that people are making in this regard is because they think that some government officials want to convert the oil refinery into a tank farm. And if that's what you're talking about, then I think the simple answer to that, no. I think that the reason why people think this is because the TOR really is the only company that has tank farms that can hold other products besides the white ones. I'm talking petrol and diesel. And so as a bulk distribution company, you really just have one option if you import anything besides petrol and diesel. I'm talking ATK, residual fuel oil, LPG, and so on. So it is possible that the focus of the refinery has shifted a little bit, since they are still generating some forms of revenue from offering this haulage for these kind of products. Moreover, again, on this same topic, Ghana has a company called Boss, which really is a network of tank farms that is supposed to hold strategic stock for the country. And so I don't think that it is deliberate. I think that it's just been a situation of poor management from the leaders of TOR and pretty much the government itself. And so once these things are addressed, then the problems of TOR should all be solved.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those issues. Some of them include the fact that TOR wasn't able to pay its workers. It also wasn't able to raise capital as well. It's not enough to say that you want to restart the refinery. The questions linger in terms of how these issues have been addressed or even resolved. So what's the status of some of the issues that led to TOR shutting down in the first place?
I think that one of the issues was that the NPA had, for example, increased the standard of product that bulk distribution companies are allowed to import into the country. For instance, the sulfur content allowed for products that were being imported was supposed to be 50 ppm and below, but the infrastructure that TOR had been built with could produce, at full blast, could refine products that were around 1,500 ppm. And that is way higher than the standard that NPA had set. And so the infrastructure of TOR really had to be revamped. And that's the reason why we found ourselves in that position. If they're able to modernize the infrastructure, put in more advancements, more upgradements, such that we're able to refine products that meet the standard of the local government, and really for a lot of the markets in the African region, the sub-Saharan African region, then TOR would be able to get back on its feet.
Okay, so we're hearing word that another refinery is being planned for location in Ghana's Western Territory. What's the latest with this? Any updates on that? Name, location, completion timeline? What do we know?
It's really hard to see, because this petroleum complex project was supposed to start around 2019, but actual work still hasn't commenced. Fine details on land acquisition are still being negotiated, and so the project should commence any moment from now. The project in its entirety is expected to be completed in 12 years, but this has been broken down into 3 phases, with each phase going to represent a partly completed aspect which can operate on its own to some extent. Now, once this project is completed, it should severely reduce the cost of importing petroleum products. And I know that people of Bonyere, the town where this refinery is going to be situated in, is called Bonyere in the Western region. And I know that these people are happy and can't wait to have it completed, because it's going to bring a lot of jobs and going to bring a lot of development for these areas. I'm, however, a little skeptical that, or concerned that government is not very involved in terms of the investments required for this project. So far, what we are hearing is that it is going to be fully financed by private entities. And so the nation as a whole may not end up benefiting by as much as it could have. I think that if governments had some skin in the game, besides just providing land and a couple of other technical things, if they invested some amount of money, then the whole nation would benefit much more than I think we would as it stands.
Okay. Benjamin, let's take a break here. When we come back, we'll get into the new proposed levies. We'll also look at Ghana's oil production and a possible revenue for 2021. This is Business Edge. Do stay with us. You're still watching Business Edge right here on News Central, and the conversation is continuing. Benjamin Ato Quansah is hopefully standing by, and we have a few more conversations we need to get into as we take a look at the perspectives in terms of how much revenue Ghana can make in the coming year. Also looking at the new levies that are supposed to be introduced if they pass Ghana's parliament, and those are also part of the conversation. So that is what we're hoping we'll be able to get into with Benjamin, who we hope to have on the line. Benjamin? Hello, Benjamin. All right, some issues there. So let me just give you a bit of background. As of September 2020, crude oil production capacity in Ghana was at about 196,000 barrels per day. The volume was below what was measured in September of 2019, when the country's capacity reached about 203,000 barrels per day. There's also the conversation happening around the fact that oil prices, or rather prices of pump for Ghanaians, have increased. Now, the Association of Oil Marketing Companies attributed the latest increase in prices of petroleum products to the forces of demand and supply on the world market. But now Ghanaians may expect another round of increase if the government's new proposed levies actually pass. Now, the new tax, which is called the Sanitation and Pollution Levy, is to fund efforts to fund investment in the areas of sanitation and pollution. And Ghanaians are asking to what end right now. And a lot of people are wondering if the government is truly justified in putting in yet another levy. And yes, I said another, because there is a bit of a background that Ghana has when it comes to the issues of levies. About 20 years ago, President Kufuor introduced the Refinery Recovery Levy, and that was just supposed to last for about 4 years, but that levy was on for about 20 years, and now it's called the Energy Sector Recovery Levy. In 2015, when oil prices actually collapsed, the government then introduced a special 2-year petroleum levy. So there are different taxes and levies on petroleum products across Ghana, and all of it come back to the Ghanaians when they are buying these products. All right, so I do believe we have Benjamin on the phone line now. And quickly, because time is not with us, let's get into that. Benjamin, let's quickly talk about this proposed levy that's coming, the Sanitation and Pollution Levy, which apparently government is saying is to fund investment in the areas of sanitation and pollution now, just after petroleum pump prices were raised. What's the justification? What really is the rationale that you think government has for introducing yet another petroleum product levy for Ghanaians?
I think that over the years, the government has promised several times to make Accra, which is the capital city of Accra, which is the capital city of Ghana, the cleanest city in West Africa. 4 years ago, even a new ministry was set up. The sanitation ministry was set up to tackle the sanitation problem, really, that Accra has had over the years. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of progress. And speaking to people from the ministry, they complain about the lack of funds, and then as one of the major challenges that they have. So I think that this is one of the reasons why this levy has been proposed. And that doesn't mean that I support it. I think that I have a position that a lot of senior members in the COPEC also have. But there are a lot of channels where we can make a lot of money from the existing taxes that government has already put in place. But these taxes aren't working really well, and so government should really focus more on plugging these holes than simply introducing new taxes.
Okay, so let's talk about the levies as well. Before we got you back online, I talked about the Refinery Recovery Levy, which is apparently now the Energy Sector Recovery Levy. Also mentioned the special 2-year petroleum levy that came about in 2015. So it's very obvious that there is some kind of history in Ghana with different levies or taxes being put on petroleum products that then make, just take more money out of the pockets of the average Ghanaian. How many levies, how many taxes are there on petroleum products for Ghanaians to pay?
Too much is what I can say. Currently, the prices that are shown at the pump consist of a lot of taxes and then the cost of the product. If you look at the taxes that are imposed on petroleum products that we have in Ghana, it constitutes about half of the prices that are shown at the pump. And that is obviously way too much. With the introduction of these new taxes as well, it's just going to burden the Ghanaian populace so much more. And I don't think it is fair, considering that there's still a lot of incidences of contraband petroleum products finding their way into the country and evading so many of these taxes. And recent analysis by some experts in the petroleum industry indicated that almost 2 billion Ghana cedis of taxes were lost through some of these channels. And so, again, I go back to what I just said, that government should concentrate more on plugging these holes than introducing these new taxes. It's unfortunate that people can't really avoid them, because whatever you do, you still have to move to wherever you're going. And so the taxes are going to be borne by the people and can't be avoided. But if government is able to plug in these holes, then the government populace will also be freed of a lot of these burdens.
And that was actually my next question, because as you mentioned, COPEC, Duncan Amao, who's the executive secretary, actually gave an interview during the week, and he talked about the fact that about 1.9 billion Ghana cedis in revenue that was due to the state found its way into private pockets. He went further to say that the total amount of the taxes that we're simply seeking to slap further on petroleum would yield an annual 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. Government has already allowed billions to go into the pockets of the high and mighty. Revenue that the government should be able to recoup has been wasted, and then you want to come to the trotro driver to say, pay more taxes and let us recoup 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. Benjamin, what has government done to close the loopholes that are allowing public funds and these revenues that are state revenues to be siphoned off, to be misappropriated?
Government has put in measures to track the products that come into the country, make sure that products that are marked to go to filling stations are going to filling stations, products that are marked to go to mines are going to mines, so they can properly track these products and then track the tax revenues that they're supposed to get. Unfortunately, even though a lot of investments went into putting these technologies in place, they're not really working fully. And it is sad to say that some members of the government actually are
complicit,
are a part of this problem, in that products that are brought in and are diverted from the ports, some products are even loaded directly from vessels into BRVs and not put in terminals and all of that, so that the customs division of government will be able to track these taxes properly. And so there's still a lot to be done, and government knows this because stakeholders keep complaining about it. Legitimate business owners, legitimate petroleum business owners complain about this all the time, that other companies are gaining unfair advantages by stealing money from the public purse and translating them into competitive prices at the pump. And so government knows about this. We just have to get government to work, and that takes leadership. That takes leadership taking the first step and ensuring that they are doing what they are supposed to do. Because really, they know what they are supposed to do.
Okay, Benjamin, we'll have to pause the conversation here. We will, of course, follow up, because there has been a lot of reaction to the proposed levy. People asking that Ghana's government, Ghana's parliament particularly, kick it out, as we mentioned earlier on. But Benjamin Ato Quansah joining me from Accra, Ghana, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for yours too.
All right, we'll move things right along and wrap things up with NC4 to watch, where we stay in the West African parts of the continent, where Nigeria says she wants to bring back her refineries to become operational again. Nigeria and Ghana have something in common. In line with this decision, the Federal Executive Council has approved $1.5 billion for the immediate rehabilitation of the largest refining firm in the country, that is the Port Harcourt Refinery. The Institute of Race Relations has warned that South African taxpayers are nearing a tipping point as the government increasingly looks for new ways to collect revenue. In a memorandum that the think tank sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa, it said that the government's increased revenue is putting more pressure on taxpayers. They described it as a form of citizen abuse, and that more people would look to a form of tax revolt to escape the increasing cost. Ethiopian Airlines said it has partnered with the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for the implementation of the African Union Trusted Travel Pass to make continental travel easier and safer amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. The Trusted Travel Pass program will ensure country regulations regarding COVID-19 travel requirements are met with minimal room for error and hassle to the traveling public. And finally, Kenya's state-owned Geothermal Development Corporation has secured a $5 million grant from the African Union for geothermal exploration of the Paka Geothermal Project in Baringo. The move comes after the signing of an agreement for the Geothermal Risk Mitigation Facility, which is a setup, or rather was set up in 2012 by the African Union Commission. And that's the end of Business Edge for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow with more business and financial stories from across the continent. Do have a pleasant day.